What's going on, people? It's your boy Kelechi back with another episode of the Rambling Mind Podcast. How are each and every single one of y'all doing today? I hope y'all are staying safe. I hope y'all are taking care of yourselves. I hope y'all are doing all the things you know you ought to do during these times, my friends. It's been a minute. I took myself a little vacation and it was very hard to get back on the ones and twos on this microphone. I was like, yo, how do you do this again? But anyway, that is not why you are here. That is not why you listen to this podcast, which if you like what you hear on this podcast, I haven't said anything yet, but yet I'm asking y'all to share the podcast with one person that you love, one person that you hate, and one person you're just kind of like, about. And also, please leave a review of the podcast on various podcast listening places, whether it be on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts. But today, what I will be talking about is an article I recently read from one of my favorite writers, who is Ben Carlson. The title of the article, which if you're watching this on YouTube, you see the title on the screen. The title of the article is "Americans Have Never Been Wealthier and No One is Happy." Americans have never been more wealthy and no one is happy. In the article, he breaks down, or he uses information from the Federal Reserve, data from the Federal Reserve, which shows the rate at which the net worth of American citizens every 3 years has grown. And it shows that over the last 3 years, from 2019 to 2022, household net worth, the median net worth of household has gone on by 37%. This is including 2022, where we had the 20% downturn in stocks. That's so a substantial amount of wealth that has been grown over the last 3 years. And then on top of it, particularly one group of people have done way better than everybody else. And this is in the crowd of ages 35 and under, those who are 35 and under. So people in my generation, our net worth grew at 143% over the last 3 years, which is insane. Our wealth grew 143%. But he points out something and he asks a question that's pretty poignant. And I'm going to read a section of the blog to y'all. And he said in the blog, he says, "Young people as a whole are in a much better place now than they were just a few short years ago. Of course, this enormous increase in wealth had to be all housing related, right? The rise in housing prices certainly played a role here nationwide. Houses were up 40% from 2019 to 2022, but renters actually experienced an even greater increase in real net worth than homeowners. The gains were 43% and 34% respectively. There are always going to be winners and losers in this system, but the financial position of American households improved substantially across the board. So why does it seem like everyone is miserable? Why is sentiment about the economy so dire? Why is the sentiment about the economy so dire?" And I thought it was a good question to ask. He gave his answer, and part of his answer was basically financial media. Media has been terrible. Like, media headlines have just, like, some examples of the ones that he gave was like, "Here's why the shockingly good jobs report is going to cost you. The Fed needs more Americans to lose their jobs. Strong job report could spell trouble for markets." Basically, so many different titles that basically just lead to like negative connotation for good news. It was like, oh, look, the economy is doing really well. Here's why that's a problem for you. And it's like all of these like negative Nancy's that put out all this information on financial media about how terrible things are when things are actually doing really well. So that was his take of why he thinks most people feel terrible, although things are actually doing pretty well. I have a different reason of why I believe we feel terrible, even though things may be going really well for us in our personal financial lives. This does not mean that there aren't real issues that people are actually dealing with right now. And it can vary based on who it is, of course. But the reason that I believe that we all feel terrible, although things may be going really well for us, and I'll be using myself as a prime example of this, is comparison. I believe comparison is the main reason that, although on the surface, when you look at your bank account, you look at your investment statements, you look at all the actual numbers and cents, like the actual hardcore numbers, it feels like you should be doing well. On the surface, it sounds like you're doing well. You're getting a good pay, all of this stuff. You still have your job. You got a pay increase. You got a promotion, all of these stuff. And yet, if you're like me, you still feel somewhat terrible about your financial situation. And like I said, I'll be using myself as an example of this. I will make more money this year than I've ever made in my life. When I get my tax return done for next year, it's going to be more money than I've ever made in my life. And I'm probably going to make even more money next year. I save and invest regularly. I have no debt except for the mortgage on my house. And even with that, I rent out the rooms in my house and I Airbnb, which brings in more passive income and income in various ways for myself. And yet, even with all of that, I still feel like it's not enough. I still feel stressed and anxious about my financial position. I still feel very anxious and fearful about what is coming down the pipeline, about what could happen in the future, about all the variety of things that could play out in the future. I feel like if I don't do more, if I don't try harder, if I don't do something different, if I don't tap into new ways of generating income or tap into new ways of increasing my earning potential, that eventually one day things will fall apart and I will be a failure. Notice how distinct that is from the actual reality of the situation that's going on. On one hand, things are pretty good. Dare I say, pretty great. I thank God for the blessings that He's given me. On another hand, I'm freaking out about, oh my God, I need to make more money. Oh my goodness, I need to find more ways to make more money. Do you see the problem? And I think most people are in this because the reason why we feel this way is comparison. Theodore Roosevelt put it the best way. He said, comparison is the thief of all joy. And I believe there are two breakdowns of how we do this comparison issue and how this comparison issue seemingly plays out in our society today. One is what I like to call keeping up with the Kardashian, aka the Instagramification of all the things. And two, the glorification of passive / the creator economy, a passion / creator economy. These are the two things that I believe are causing us to feel down, even though things are going pretty well for a lot of us. Let me explain. So first, the Instagramification of all things. There's an old saying or a saying in investing, which is there is nothing worse than seeing your neighbor make money from, get rich from a stock that you never knew existed. There is nothing wrong. There's nothing worse than seeing your dumb neighbor get rich from buying a stock that you had no idea existed. There's nothing worse than that. In other words, envy. Over the last 2-3 years, from 2020 to 2021, we saw a lot of people get filthy rich. I mean, there was a movie that just came out, Dumb Money, about a guy who bet on GameStop stock and became a millionaire. We've seen people get rich from crypto. We've seen people get rich from buying and selling Tesla. We've seen people get rich from options plays. We've even seen people get rich from freaking JPEGs. Oh, my bad, NFTs. From buying these ridiculous JPEGs / NFTs and flipping them and making all kinds of money. This was all due to the amount of money stimulus that was pumped into the economy during the COVID pandemic. But so many people made so much money. But not only did they make their money, it's one thing if you made your money and you just went into the sunset. People flaunted that wealth. People lorded that wealth over everyone. They talked about how rich they were getting. They talked about how you were so dumb to not be able to see what was going to happen. They talked about how much smarter they were than you. And to a degree, you started believing that. You started believing them too. I know I did. To be like, damn, if only I had known. How did that guy didn't even do anything. He didn't even do anything, yet he made millions? Like how? We hear about people who were able to raise millions of dollars for their companies and become millionaires overnight. So much of these stories that were passed along, and we saw it on social media, and we saw it everywhere, and we knew people who were getting rich in so many different ways, and we were on the sidelines like, how do I do this? But when we finally stepped into the ring, everything fell apart. Everything fell apart. And so although our net worth went up, although our other passive, boring investments went up as well, and our net worth actually increased, all we can think about is it could have been more. It could have been more. Because inherently, we all realize something. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event. We all feel like, yo, I just missed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to make money. We all like, oh my God, if I had just played this a little bit better, I could be in a completely different tax bracket right now. I love what Charlie Munger says. Charlie Munger always says, envy is the worst. Let me read it properly. He says, envy is the worst of all the 7 deadly sins because it is the least one you can actually enjoy. It is the one you can't even enjoy. But that's what's happening. We feel envious of all the people that we see online who are able to completely flip their position in life. Now, on the other hand, it's also increased Schadenfreude, which is Schadenfreude is the theory that you gain happiness from seeing other people's misery. And so a lot of people were just waiting and hoping and praying that there would be a bubble pop. And then all these people that were like lording their wealth over everyone would take some kind of big L. And that happened in 2022. But regardless, still, we still all feel like we would have been the smart ones to have bailed, to have sold on time, to have escaped, just like a few people who escaped. And we wouldn't have been the ones to actually suffer the negative circumstances that happened in 2022 when a bunch of people lost money. So there's that part of envy. Then there's the other part of it, which is the Instagramification of all the things. In the world we live in today, it is not okay for you to just go to a restaurant for a meal. You got to hit up a vibey spot. And if you live in Atlanta, you got to go to a spot that's got the music, which, hot take, and anybody can tell me, Atlanta has some of the fanciest restaurants, has some of the trashiest food, but you pay the most price for them, and all you're paying for is vibes, atmosphere. Bruh, Atlanta has such overpriced food. It's so incredible. It's incredible how bad. Anyway, that's beside the point. Point is, it's not just good enough for you to just go to a good restaurant and sit down and eat food. You got to go to a vibey spot so you can post about it on Instagram and be like, I went here with my friends. It's not good enough for you to just take a break and go to like a beach, a local beach next to you. Nah, you got to go to Tulum for vacation. It's not enough for you to actually get an engagement party going on. No. Engagements have become entire industries unto themselves. Engagements are no longer an intimate source of you sharing your love for one another. Nah, it's become a whole industry of how do we make this into a show? Bachelor and bachelorette parties are now turned into a whole reliving the Hangover and Bridesmaid type movies. Weddings are literally an entire movie production. Like the amount of things that we bring into weddings nowadays are just incredible to me. Like the amount of varied things that you see at weddings, it's like, yo, is this a movie or is this a wedding? Like, what are we doing here? The Instagramification of all the things. We see things all the time of Instagram. We see our friends do their own weddings. We see celebrities. We see millionaires, billionaires do things on Instagram and we're like, oh, I gotta do that too. I gotta follow suit. I saw pictures online of how people are asking people out for homecoming, asking people out for prom. I was like, what is happening? Like it literally is looking like they're actually asking somebody to marry them. The amount, the over the topness of how people are asking people out now is just blows my mind. But it's the Instagramification of all the things because we got to post about them. Not only is it good enough for me to take a hike, no. I got to take a hike in the same spot that everybody else is taking a hike on and take the same picture that everybody else is taking and post it so I can say, hey guys, I've been there too. The Instagramification of every aspect of our lives. It's not good enough for you to take baby pictures. Nah, you got to take professional baby pictures and post that shit on Instagram. It's not good enough for you to just enjoy the growth and the learning of your loved ones. No. You got to post that shit on Instagram. The Instagramification of all the things. It's like, hey, kid, baby, we do 1-year-old birthday parties and we try to force our babies to do the whole smash their face in the cake thing, even though they have zero interest. And so we torment them by forcing them to try and do it where they don't care at all. Because what? We got to post it on Instagram. We decorate our house the same way we see influencers decorate their house, even though they're getting those things for free and you're having to buy it from them. Because of what? We got to post that shit on Instagram. The Instagramification of all the things. And then there's the second part. The glorification of the passion/creator economy. In 2018, I started my career as a transmission line design engineer. I didn't even know this job existed, but I thank God I got it. I loved the job. I still work in it and I still love it. Not only did it give me a potential of growth in learning new things and learning how to do new things and challenging me to be able to grow in just engineering base, but also grow into leadership and grow in responsibility and grow in doing more things and grow in like learning different organizations and learning different things. So I love the job. And also I got paid pretty well. I'm not gonna lie, I still get paid pretty well. Like I get paid very well. And so when I started my job and even until 2020, I felt pretty good about my financial situation as a whole. I felt pretty good about where I was financially. I felt pretty good about how life was progressing for me. But then, like I said, 2020 happened and all hell broke loose. First of all, we're stuck inside our house and there was nothing else to do. And so I started learning about TikTok. I got on TikTok, started creating some content on TikTok. Then I learned about how so many people were able to monetize TikTok. And so I was like, I got to get a piece of that pie, because at the same time that I was learning about TikTok and tapping into my creativity once again, because previously I had been making videos for YouTube. I've been making videos since like 2014. And so my creative release became my route to be able to make extra streams of income, because at the same time that I was tapping into TikTok, I started learning about how people, about FIRE, about financial independence, about alternatives, about how we can live differently and how you can achieve financial independence as quickly as possible. I learned about people who are retiring at 30, people who are retiring at 35, people who are working for so long, people who are doing things a different way and making buku bucks. And I was like, yo, I love that picture. I'd always been one who was financially, I won't say savvy, but I understood a lot of financial things, but I never thought about financial independence, retiring early. But all of a sudden, that lit a fire in me. And I was like, I also live in the greatest time, the golden age of creativity, where people can create content about anything and just find their niche and make money and develop a brand new stream of income that I can just use to ensure that I can retire early. And so I started pushing. 1 year went by, 2 years went by, 3 years went by, and your boy still ain't made no money off of any of this. Your boy still ain't made no dollar off of all of this. Now, the cool thing is I met a lot of great people, but the problem is meeting those people, I was seeing them succeed at what I wanted to succeed at. I would make friends and I'll see them quit their full-time jobs to become full-time creators and make buku bucks by doing that. And I'm like, how? How are y'all able to do this? How are y'all able to make this bread? What are y'all doing that I don't know what I'm doing? And so I spiral. It's like, what do they, like we say in Nigeria, do they have two heads? No, they don't have two heads. What is it that they know that I do not know? Why can I not figure this thing out? What is the problem with me? So comparison from the creator/passion economy, because it's no longer a thing of like, oh, that person just risked it all, went to Hollywood, did all this stuff, and then they were able to become rich. No, it's, all you need to do is buy a microphone, buy a camera, go on your computer, download some free softwares, and if you work hard enough, and if you're consistent enough, you're definitely gonna make it. Reality could not be any more different. And so you ask yourself, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing wrong that everybody else has figured out? What is it that I'm doing that everybody else is not doing and they're successful at this thing? And so we compare. And like I said earlier, envy, it sucks. It's the worst of all the 7 deadly sins. And so even though on the surface, you're doing well, your 9 to 5 is going well, you are progressing, you're making more money, your income is growing, but because the one thing you want to actually be doing really well is not doing really well, the thing you compare yourself against everybody else to is not working out that well, you feel miserable. Or because you're not getting to the goal as quickly as you expected to get to the goal, you feel miserable. And I guess that's the main point. That is the main thing that underlies both of these things, both the Instagramification of all the things and also the comparison using the creator/passion economy. The thing that underlies both of those things is our expectations. Morgan also refers to this as our expectation debt. He says expectations are like a debt that must be repaid before you get any joy out of what you are doing. And over the last 2 years, 3 years, since 2020, our expectations have changed. Our expectations have inflated just like the inflation that we've been fighting with over the last 3 years. Our expectations has completely flipped. We no longer expect just to do really well at work. Now it's, I got to do really well at work, become a supervisor in less than 2 years, become a manager as soon as possible because I know it's possible because I saw and I heard a podcast about somebody who did it. And I have to be able to retire in less than 10 years because I heard a podcast and I know somebody did it. So therefore, if I can't accomplish that, I am a failure. Expectations. As Morgan Housel says, expecting nothing but good feels like such a good mindset. You're optimistic, you're happy, and you're winning. But whether you know it or not, you're very likely piling up a hidden debt that must eventually be repaid. And we have been piling up a debt of expectations on our heads over the last 3 years, and now that bill is due. And so although things look good, we feel miserable. Because our expectations and our reality is a gap. And as somebody once told me, happiness is the result of realistic expectations. But right now, these are our expectations and this is reality. Reality is still great, but it's not at our expectations. So we feel miserable. Be mindful of how you're setting your expectations. It's something that I talk about this a lot, about comparison, about expectations, because it's something I deal with. It's something I'm still dealing with, and it's something that I'm still working through. But how I set my expectations can either lead me to being depressed or lead me to a lifetime of enjoyment and fulfillment. Because there's 2 ways I could look at it. I could look at all the stuff I don't have, or I could look at all the blessings that I do have. I was talking to a friend, and I was like, yo, when I look back, life has been good, really good. But I'm so focused on how do I get the next thing and the next thing and the next thing that I miss out on all the things I currently do have. So just be mindful of your expectations. Be mindful of what you're focusing on. Because you can either be setting yourself up for greatness or be setting yourself up for utter disappointment. But anyway, that's all I got for y'all. I hope y'all liked this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, share this podcast with one person that you love, one person that you hate, and one person you're just kind of like, about. And by that time, you just share it with every single person that you know. Also, remember, please leave a review of the podcast. If you think I'm talking nonsense, please let me know. And at least other people can learn from that as well. But other than that, give me a 5-star review, all right? But I'm gonna catch y'all up on the next one. Remember, generosity is always greater than greed. God bless each and every single one of y'all, and your boy is out of here. Peace. Whoosh.